Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here on Play on GAA with me, Seamus Brady, your host, and for this one I am joined by Aaron Prendergast, the man behind GAA Fan TV. We're going to run through all of the action from the GAA which happened across the weekend, across all four codes. Aaron, just in terms of, again, another weekend which has produced some absolutely cracking results, alongside obviously two provincial final hammerings for Clare and for Sligo from Kerry and Galway respectively. So while there were some fantastic results, I'd say it's fair to say this weekend was more of an interesting weekend. I had a bit of everything. Obviously, the controversial comments from Donald Cusack, which we'll touch on as well. The Dublin-Wexford game, which saw a big win for Dublin, but definitely a quality drop-off in terms of the standards both teams were hitting. Just a bit of a weekend that had it all, if you like.
Absolutely, yeah. No, there was so much that happened. I mean, obviously, like the Cork Tipperary game in hurling was probably the game of the weekend in terms of across all codes. Like it was an absolute cracking game. Make no mistake about that. And obviously, in the provincial championships in the football, like I suppose very comprehensive wins for Galway and Kerry. I think every man probably in the country probably could have predicted that both Kerry and Galway were going to win. I think it was probably more disappointing that the Kerry-Clare game was not more competitive than what we thought. Like, actually, you could argue the Galway-Sligo game was actually more competitive, and those sides are, more divisions apart than Kerry and Clare. But yeah, no, like obviously the under-20 action as well, like great result for Sligo there. Obviously Kildare getting a big win against Down with Jack McKevitt's late point. And yeah, there's definitely a lot of talking points, a lot of discussion points, and I suppose it's definitely never quiet anyway around this time of the year in terms of GAA. Like even if we did have two one-sided provincial finals, there's certainly still plenty of talking points that come from those games and certainly from a lot of other games across the country.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it's never boring, is it? But we're going to go into that game, the game of the weekend, which was obviously from the Munster Hurling Championship, which never fails to deliver. Cork 4-19, Tipperary 2 goals and 25 points. An amazing game of hurling, really topped off by that burst in the last 12 minutes, which saw Cork hit 2-4 to Tipperary's 1-2 to snatch the draw. But overall, this was just a fantastic game of hurling.
It was, yeah. Like it was, back and forth. Both sides were going at it. I mean, it was everything you want to see in a game of hurling. Like I think if you were to advertise a game of hurling and put it on, put it in front of the world, this would be the game. And I think that's probably the frustration that it was on GAA Go and not on TV. Like, for anyone who were in the pub Saturday, it was just rugby that was on, and Wood.
Or the coronation.
Or the coronation, yeah.
Who cares about that? Like that.
Yeah, crazy. Like, and obviously that was shown on RTE as well, which, yeah, like I mean, it's crazy that gets shown and our national game doesn't get shown. But I suppose that's probably how it is nowadays. Unfortunately, it's trying to please everyone and trying to keep friendly relations with our neighbors and all this crack. But yeah, no, I think the game itself was very, very good. Like it was. Like I didn't watch the game live, but I've since watched it back this morning, and like, I mean, even when you were hearing the scores, like back and forth, like so many goals going in, both sides, like going full tilt, like the likes of Declan Dalton, I thought like had an outstanding game for Cork. He scored 1-2. Shane Kingston, who even came off the bench, like you'd wonder like why this guy doesn't start that much for Cork. Like I'm starting, like you nearly wonder, is it something that goes on behind the scenes? Is he not a good trainer? Like, I don't know. Is he a bit of a messer? I don't really know. But like he came off the bench and was outstanding. Like his Cork came from 5 points down, scoring 3 points. But in fairness to Tipperary as well, like although they'll be disappointed they didn't win the game, like scoring 225, like another outstanding performance. And great to see the likes of Noel and John McGrath like still shooting the lights out for Tipperary. I think those players were probably under question in the last couple of years in terms of like, do they still have what it takes in terms of playing inter-county hurling week in, week out? But I think the answer is that they definitely do. And, the likes of Gerard O'Connor, like he scored 1-3. It was a good performance from him. Alan Tynan as well. I think it was his second championship start. So yeah, like it's great to see because both of these two sides have probably been at a similar trajectory in terms of, like I know Tipperary won an All-Ireland at senior level in 2019, but both have had a huge amount of underage success. both are trying to blend in a lot of these new young players with some of the older players that are there, and obviously trying to kick on. And it was great to see because it was just a cracking game. And I suppose, like no side deserved to lose. And in the end, that's what we got.
Yeah, no, without doubt. And I feel like the one thing that you can come away from this game, even though nobody won, is that both these teams are on the up. Both these teams are going for Limerick's top spot. And so I'm just going to throw this to you. Tipperary looked to be in control in this game at one point. Gerard O'Connor's goal definitely was a part of the game where you could have looked at it and thought maybe they were going to push on. But then, of course, Fitzgibbon's tap-in goal and Brian Hayes' goal was the one that levelled it. Cork fought back. Do you think either of these teams will be happier with the draw? Like, will Cork look at this and be happy from a point of view of, okay, we fought back? And will Tipperary look at it as, we let them back into it? Or like, what's the mentality coming out of this game for both teams, would you say?
I think Cork will definitely be the happier because, like, not only did they get a point themselves, but I think another important factor worth mentioning is that they take a point away from Tipperary because, like, obviously only 3 sides get out of Munster, and it's, it's fierce. Like, you're even looking at it and thinking between Cork, Tipperary, Limerick and Clare, it's so unfortunate one of those teams is going to miss out. And you're nearly looking at it and thinking, like Clare, Tipperary and Cork have probably looked better than Limerick so far in the championship. Yep. And how crazy would it be if Limerick missed out? But you wouldn't bet against it at this stage, considering how good the likes of Clare, Tipperary and Cork have looked. But yeah, like I think Cork will definitely be the happier because they were 5 points down. It would have been another win for Tipperary. It would have given them a bit of a foothold back into, possibly into a Munster final. They get a draw, they get 3 points on the board. It just gives them that extra chance possible. And it's going to go down to the war in Munster. It could go down to score difference. It could go down to, head to head or something of that nature. So it's going to go down to the war. So I think Cork will definitely be the happier. And I think Tipperary will be disappointed that they didn't see the game out. But I think at the same time, like, you score 225 in a game of hurling, they were just knackered towards the end of the game, just absolutely wrecked. And you can't really fault them. To be honest with you. But at the same time, I'm sure Liam Cahill will be saying to the lads, like, that's something we need to work on, which is closing out games.
Yeah, and sure, like, when we're talking about going down to the wire, the next games for these teams is just like off the scale in terms of importance. Obviously, next up for Tipperary is Limerick. Like, that's one hell of a game. The one I'm keeping an eye on, if you're talking for Cork, is their trip to Ennis to play Clare. Like, the significance of that game. Like, if you had to pick one, like, is it possible that Limerick go out in the Munster Championship, which is something that I would just have never even considered? Like, there's genuinely, this is going to happen now. Genuinely, one of the top 5 teams in the country, because I genuinely believe, top 6 teams in the country. I think Galway and Kilkenny fit in with the top 4 in Munster right now. One of these teams is going to be out at the first hurdle.
Yeah, no, it's mad, all right. Like, and speaking of Matthew last night on my own show, we were even saying, like, is it fair that the 4th best team in Munster actually exits the championship, and then you look at it, Dublin, are possibly likely to go get out of Leinster, when I think we would all say that the team that finishes 4th in Munster would probably wipe the floor with Dublin. Like, let's be honest. And Wexford, if it was Wexford who got in there, I think we'd say the same again. So, yeah, like, it is mad. Like, I think Limerick will still come good. Like, I think they've, they won 3 in a row for good reason. Like, anytime they've faced a huge amount of adversity, they've been able to come through it. And I think they will come good and they will have enough. But in terms of who misses out, like, it's so hard to say. Like, I think the game in Ennis, I think, could be huge. I think that could be the decider. And you are looking at, like, Cork going away to Clare and then they play Limerick. It's going to be tough for Cork, but at the same time, Tipperary play Clare and Limerick as well. So, like, it's just going to go completely down to the wire. Like, well, actually, Tipperary already beat Clare, but they play Limerick and Waterford, I think it is. You'd fancy them to beat Waterford. So, yeah, like, trying to think of all the permutations off the top of my head is just mental. Like,
no, I wouldn't be surprised, really. Like, I'd be surprised if Limerick got knocked out, but apart from that, I'd be like, it's such dog eat dog in Munster that, like, literally anyone is vulnerable at this stage, particularly now that Limerick have lost their sheen of invincibility that they seem to have over them going into this year. But yeah, we will move on from this game. An absolutely unbelievable game. Hats off to both teams. Big respect. Best of luck going into the next rounds. But we are going to move on because we do have a lot to get through and touch on a bit of controversy next, which of course was Donald Cusack's comments, which obviously, on the highlights show. I'm just going to quote him exactly what he said. So he said, hurling needs oxygen. Then moving on, he said, I have no issue with pay-per-view. That's part of the landscape and it has its role to play. But by next weekend, when Clare play Waterford, 4 of the biggest Munster Championship games would have been on pay-per-view. The GAA has introduced this microwave hurling championship, this compressed season where there's 11 weekends of hurling. You'd have to ask who is accountable for the promotion of hurling because whoever it is not doing a good job. The GAA took on trusteeship of it. It looks as if they are now shrinking the game rather than growing it. You have to ask, are RT and the GAA exploiting hurling? How many Munster Championship games in the football compared to the hurling have they showed? It looks as if they're using hurling to get this joint venture off of the ground, whereas it should be the other way around. These are facts. Last year, we had an All-Ireland quarter-final played at lunchtime on a Saturday. The next day, there was a Tailteann Cup game on in Croke Park. So, I mean, for anybody who thinks that RT is very, safe, they're not exactly safe comments. If you're talking, he's really drawn a line in the sand there. What did you make of them?
Yeah, I thought it was great to hear it. To be honest, I was surprised when I heard it. I was nearly kind of waiting for Jackie Hurley, I think it is, to almost interfere a bit like what we see with Joanne Cantwell. But in fairness to her, she just let it flow. Like she just let it go. And I thought it was great. Like, and obviously I suppose GAA Go is a competitor to some extent, so maybe they probably are. They are able maybe to kind of voice it out a bit more, even though a lot of commentators who do work on RT have often worked on GAA Go as well. But yeah, no, like, I think it's a lot of great points. Like, I think for whatever reason, like the Hurling Championship does get neglected quite a lot. Like, I know obviously the boat lads were talking about it, football sort of being a huge interference and everything else. I just think like obviously with Gaelic football, it is covered more around the country. When you look at Ulster, when you look at Connacht, in Connacht, you've got, Galway, I suppose. I know Sligo, Roscommon, Mayo have all seen, a bit of a rise in hurling in the last couple of years, but Galway's the only sort of main county there. In Ulster, Antrim, Down, Derry to a certain extent. But again, is that, Antrim, you would say there probably is more of a hurling county than a football county, but you could argue it's different. So, and then you're looking at Leinster, really, it's just kind of Kilkenny. So you're looking at it and thinking there's probably only 7 or 8 counties in the country where hurling is the top sport. So you can understand why football is the priority, because it does bring in more viewing figures, brings in more attendances in terms of, when you look at the overall amount of people that are going to games. But I don't think it's an issue in terms of like football is hugely prioritized. Like, you could argue football has been neglected as well. Like, I think when you look through the likes of Division 3 and 4 in the league, we barely ever get to see games there. We got to see a good bit of the Tailteann Cup last year, but will it be the same this year? Obviously, that remains to be seen. But I do think there is great points from Donald Cusack, and I think that there definitely should be more hurling games shown. There should be Joe McDonagh Cup games shown. The fact that we don't even get highlights out of those games, I think, is just really, really disappointing. But at the same time, like, it is up to RTE to try and show those games as well. Like, obviously they were talking loads about GAA Go showing those games, but at the same time, like, where was RTE on Saturday? Like, where were they on Sunday? Like, fair enough, they were showing the provincial football finals, but they could have had a Joe McDonagh Cup game on RTE Player on their YouTube channel. Like, there should be more. There definitely should be more done, not just by GAA Go, but I think by all stations, in my opinion.
Oh, without doubt. I mean, like, if you're talking coverage, if you're talking marketing, for me, the GAA is so under-marketed. They could do such a better job, in my opinion, with covering the game. Like, have they ever heard of live streaming? Like, over the pandemic, like, that just took off, and there were so many club games that were live streamed, and they just got a few lads to commentate on the games. Like, for example, like my club, Whitehall, played against St. Vincent's, and that game was live streamed. But we played against Fogs as well in the Club Hurling Championship. That game was live streamed. Just a couple of lads from the club just commentated over the match, did a fine job, and it was really enjoyable to watch. Why can the GAA not do that? Why can they not just do that? Why do they need to, be so specific about the way that they do things? It just it does annoy me. And it's not like they haven't seen success with live streaming before. Why do we not have a midweek preview show? Like you look at the content that Sky Sports do, where they talk about where they get fans on to preview games and they have debates and stuff like that back and forth. Like that type of content would do great. I don't know why they don't do it. In my opinion, like they don't, like we could have this debate for days, but I just think they need to look at how they're marketing the GAA and look for opportunities to grow the game, because this condensed calendar that they've gone with gives the GAA a very small window to promote their games at the highest level. So they need to take advantage of this period as best they can. Like, for example, in the league, the one where I just absolutely could not wrap my head around it at all was a day where Derry and Kildare happened to be playing each other at the same time on the same day in both the hurling and the football. And they put the hurling up in Owen Beg and they put the football in Newbridge. I literally could not believe that they didn't just pick a neutral ground and do a double header. To this day, I couldn't believe that they didn't do that. And like, it's just one of those things where you look at it and say, overall, marketing can be better in the future, I think.
Oh, definitely, absolutely. Like, and I think that's something where the GAA is hugely failing, like, because they don't, like, even in terms of advertisements, like if you're watching the TV, or even if you're scrolling through ads on YouTube or Instagram, like, you don't really see much sort of popping up to remind you of the games or what's happening here, what's going on. I definitely think some sort of preview show, like they have GAA Go now, they have the streaming service, they have a lot of people who've paid for it for a year, so a lot of people are going to tune in there. Why not? Like, especially with the pundits that they do have, like in terms of Michael Murphy, Paddy Andrews, obviously Aisling O'Reilly's hosting it, and you have a few others there as well. Like, why not have a preview show? Like, how much more could it realistically cost them to do that? Like, you know, and obviously
this is the thing, Aaron. They could literally do what we're doing now. They could
do
what?
Why
like, can't they do that? Like,
I don't know. It doesn't make sense. Like, I don't know. Like, and obviously Sky, like, to give Sky a little bit of credit, they did on YouTube. They did have their own little sort of preview show before games. It was very half-hearted, to be honest. It was like 20 minutes, and they just like run through like two games or like the big games from the weekend, and there wasn't really much of a discussion. But like, yeah, like it's definitely something they could do, like over Zoom, over this. They could do it in, you know, because even you look at something like on Sky, for example, when as soon as the game, like obviously there's a thing called the Gary Neville podcast, which I think is something that was really good that was introduced, and it's so simple. It's just the game, all the games are over. Gary Neville's still in the stadium. Martin Tyler, the commentator, has the microphone, and he's just asking Gary a couple of questions on the weekend's games. It's 15, 20 minutes. Why couldn't they do that with someone like Paddy Andrews or Michael Murphy is on commentary or something of that nature? Like, there's so much that they really, really could do. And like, yeah, like you could go on and on. Like, even say, for example, like I'm a Liverpool fan, for example, and one of the things I love watching from Liverpool's YouTube channel is they do this thing called Inside Anfield, which is where they show sort of like the kind of, you know, behind the scenes footage, the fans, the players. Now, obviously, they don't show absolutely everything because you can't, you know, for obvious reasons. But they show like a lot of good bits and everything else. And it's always something I love watching, because obviously you don't always get to go, so it gives you sort of a peek behind the curtain. And you know, like, you know, is it that much to ask for that the GAA couldn't think of something like that as well? Because you know, I think for fans who are abroad, I think it'd be great for them. But unfortunately, for whatever reason, they seem to be stuck in the mid 2000s and not really up to, you know, the 2020s.
I agree. And like, we will move on because we could literally be on this all day. But overall, both of us are in agreement of, look, an overhaul of the marketing needs to happen. I think starting with the entire structure of the game, you could reach an entirely new level of notoriety if you just tweak a few little things. And I don't want to hear anything about costs. Like, the GAA can do live streams on Zoom, can do live streams on this service that we're using here. It costs nothing. Like, why can't they do that? Like, so yeah, I and like, people would watch It like people would watch. It doesn't need to be in a studio for people to listen. Like if top GA players were discussing games back and forward on a streaming service and the audio was good, people would listen. Like people do listen. They're very interested to hear what people have to say. And like all that content is there for the GA. Sky Sports. And it's gas because if you look back, this is the last point I'll say about it, and then we'll move on. If you were to look back to late 2008, Irish TV was actually the one that was, the one that was a bit more out there. The pundits were having back and forths with each other in the studio. You think about Joe Brolly and Tony Davis having that back and forth about the Cork team. You think about Joe Brolly talking about the Sean Kavanagh incident. You think about, obviously, not even just in the GAA. You think about, the back and forth between Eamon Dunphy and John Giles and Liam Brady and Ronnie Whelan and all this. And then it's gas. Sky Sports at the time were so serious. They didn't want anything to do with anything that wasn't super professional. And then Chris Kamara makes that mistake live on air. They see the reaction to that. Now Sky Sports have completely lent into that. Whereas anyone who was a little bit opinionated on RTE isn't really there anymore. And that's why I was so surprised when Donal Óg came out with comments that were that on the money. Like when he came out, that were comments with that level of intensity. I was surprised because I was like, RTE don't seem to do these things anymore. Like, yeah, but that's my last point. It's fascinating to see how Sky have lent into making it a bit more entertaining, whereas the GAA have leaned into making it a bit more safe.
Yeah, like it kind of is mad, all right, and it's the same across the board at RTE. Like obviously Eamon Dunphy and all them lads who presenting the Hurling games through the years, a lot of them have obviously been moved on as well. Like, and yeah, like I don't know, like I suppose if you listen to Joe Brolly, he obviously goes on about certain individuals who are ruining everything for everyone else. I don't know if that, if that's just Joe being bitter. He kind of probably is a bit bitter with everyone in RTE at the minute. I've seen him having a go at Eamon Fitzmaurice the other day on Twitter as well. But yeah, no, I think absolutely. Like, I don't know why, because at the end of the day, like, controversy sells. And like, even look at something like with Glenn Ryan's comments. Like, I think whilst we could all, we could, you could argue either way and everything else. I think at the same time, it's great to see, like, and that's something that's a talking point that gets people talking. I'd much rather managers say these kind of things or pundits say these kind of things than just give the stereotypical, oh, well, we played well and we didn't win the game, blah, blah, blah. Like, I think it's great. And, hopefully we see more of it. And hopefully for Donal Óg, he's not pushed, he's taken out of a WhatsApp group this morning or anything like that. Like, hopefully he's, because like, I haven't always agreed with Donal Óg. I think he has come out with some interesting statements at times, but I think you would definitely agree with him on this one.
Yeah, and as I said, I fully agree with him. And I think it's a debate for another day. I don't know why I can't get my words out today, but it's a debate for another day. Because if we'll be here till the cows come home, as they say, we could be talking about this all day. We'll move then to the Leinster Hurling Championship, which obviously saw a victory for Dublin, 122 to 23 points. Now, this victory, and this is a weird situation for me. I know that it's definitely the same that you're feeling as a Dublin fan. It's like we've won, and we've won in a game that pretty much guarantees that we're going to go into that third place in the Leinster Championship, because I don't see Wexford beating Galway or Kilkenny this year. But it's like, even though we've won, the level of quality in this game was so far off the Cork Tipperary game that I just have no confidence that we'd be able to compete with those teams in the quarterfinals. Like, it's a weird emotion because it's like this victory pretty much guarantees that we get through, but it also showed me that still we're quite a bit off those teams in Munster.
Yeah, like I think like if you look at it, like Wexford had 20 wides in the game. Do you know what I mean? Like, and like Matthew Hurley was saying on my own show yesterday, like I think it was something like Wexford had 49 scoring chances and Dublin had somewhere in the 20s. You would assume then that Wexford won the game based off the amount of scoring chances that they had, but it actually wasn't the case. Obviously, Dublin won the game. And like, one thing you would say about Dublin is they're really efficient, really good in front of goal, which I think was great to see. Like, I think we only had 7 wides on the day. But I think you would all agree that the game was more than there for Wexford. Like, they had some very poor misses at times, like shooting for goals way out the field, like just not making use of the ball at all. And I remember, like, when I was watching the game, and I was just thinking, like I remember after about like 45, 50 minutes, I was like, Dublin are going to win this game. Like, Wexford just don't have it within themselves. And it was like, no matter what Wexford throw at Dublin here, it's just not going to happen for them, because they just kept like putting the ball wide, miss-hitting passes and everything else. But yeah, from a Dublin perspective, it's a big win. It's a needed win, I think, for Micheál Donoghue, because obviously the draw with Antrim earlier in the year, that the league hasn't been particularly brilliant. And yeah, like we were efficient, but we probably didn't make use of the ball well. But at the same time, like Donald Burke, I mean, again, like how many times are Dublin fans going to mention him? Obviously, his point at the end of the game was outstanding. And, you know, Keane O'Sullivan again getting a crucial goal for Dublin, just like he did against Antrim. And, you know, even the likes of Mark Grogan in around midfield, like new player, obviously, that's come into the team. Alex Considine, you know, starting more regularly as well. So there's positives from a Dublin perspective, but at the same time, yeah, I'd agree with you. Like, you could look at it like Dublin's next two games are Galway and Kilkenny. We could get beat comfortably in both. I think we could possibly put it up to Galway with it being in Croke Park. But you look at the history of us against Kilkenny, they usually turn us over quite comfortably. And if Galway have anything big to play for on that final day, they could beat us comfortably as well. So then you're going into a Joe McDonagh Cup game, which we should win. But then after that, you could be against a Clare, a Tipperary, possibly even a Limerick. So like, do you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't bode well at all. Unfortunately, from a Dublin point of view. But at the same time, like, there's an outside chance of getting to a Leinster final if certain results go our way. Maybe if we beat Galway on the final day. But at the same time, on the basis of how we've performed so far this year, it would be a big surprise, I think, to see either Galway or Kilkenny not get into a Leinster final.
Yeah, and combined with how good those two sides have looked, I mean, we're going to get into Kilkenny's victory over Antrim and Westmeath, and Galway's victory over Westmeath, in just a moment. But yeah, both of those sides looking so good, and Dublin looking like, you know, we're in a bit of transition. Doesn't add up well for Dublin potentially getting to a Leinster final or even winning a Leinster title. And the thought of playing Limerick in the quarterfinal is absolutely terrifying. Like, we've been kept away from them for a few years now, like obviously with the way that the championship has gone over the last few years. But yeah, the Munster Championship is so crazy this year. You don't know who's going to come out of it. So but yeah, like basically I said it there that I couldn't see Wexford pulling off a shock this year like they did last year. Do you agree with that, or do you think that they could still pull something out of the bag?
For Wexford, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to know. Like, I mean, they play Westmeath and I think Kilkenny in their final two games. You'd imagine they'll be Westmeath. I think that goes without saying. So, like, it will go down to the final day. Like Wexford, yeah, that's what I mean. It's a strange one with Wexford. They always seem to turn up against Kilkenny. You know, beating them last year, like, and this time they'll be at home as well in Wexford Park. Like, they beat Kilkenny in Nolan Park last year, and it could be possible that Kilkenny mightn't have anything to play for in that game if they wrap up a Leinster final by then. So it's, yeah, like, I wouldn't completely rule Wexford out of it, but at the same time, they're not playing well so far this year. You'd arguably say it hasn't clicked for Dara Egan. I was saying last night as well, like, is it possible that Wexford might regress a little bit now over the next couple of years? When you look at it prior to Davy Fitz's arrival, like, Wexford were probably more headed towards the likes of a, you know, Offaly or possibly John McDonagh. Now, could it happen in the next 4 or 5 years? Probably not. But at the same time, you know, the likes of Antrim are closing the gap on, and probably on Dublin as well. So, no, I think it's two huge games for Wexford. But at the same time, when they play Kilkenny, they always tend to turn up, and especially with it being at home, a lot on the line, you know, they could still pull it off.
Yeah, no, and definitely it's giving me chills that game is going to be in their home patch, considering that they managed to pull it off last year away from home. So hopefully Kilkenny have something to play for when that game does come around. But one thing that we can't ignore is this Kilkenny team looks very, very good. Having seen this result from the weekend, Kilkenny 531, Antrim 320. I mean, in a ground that is notorious for being a difficult place to go in Corrigan Park, Kilkenny go there and just get the victory with absolute ease.
Yeah, it was like, and like you were wondering sort of coming into the game, obviously, like when they played each other in the league, like Antrim were fairly competitive, but no, it was fairly comfortable enough from a Kilkenny perspective. Like TJ Reid scoring 210, Martin Keown with a hat trick and 3 points to go with it as well. So yeah, it was comfortable enough really for Kilkenny. I think Antrim will still take confidence. Like to score 320 against Kilkenny is still a good number. And you look at the scoreline, although it was fairly comfortable for Kilkenny in the end, like they won the game by 17 points. It wasn't like that throughout the entire 70, and probably more so the way hurling is now, where it's 320 would have won you a game against Kilkenny 10, 15 years ago, whereas now you get beat by 17 points.
Yeah,
it's kind of mad. It's mad how the game has gone, but yeah, like I think it's one of them where like Antrim are playing probably one of the best teams in the country, and yeah, like there's not a lot really you can do, unfortunately.
Yeah, like you said that there about Antrim scoring 320. Like, do you think Derek Ling, because like that's a huge tally to put up from Kilkenny, like are we seeing a more attack oriented Kilkenny? Because like in the league that we're consistently putting up big scores, in all of the games. Like, are we seeing a more kind of trying to outscore you Kilkenny in that sense?
It could be, yeah. Like, especially when you look at the players that they have, like obviously TJ Reid's back in the side, Owen Cody, Adrian Mullen probably in their prime. I know Billy Drennan's out now with an injury, I think, for the next while. But if he comes back in the latter parts of the championship, like the attack that they've got is really, really strong. So yeah, like they could be looking at. I suppose it's probably one of them. Like when you're playing an Antrim, when you're playing a Laois, like, or even a Westmeath as well, your forwards just need to be at it. Your attackers just need to be at it, and then you'll win the game quite comfortably. Like you probably don't really need to worry too much about what you do defensively. So no, yeah, like I think with the wealth of options, the wealth of attack that they have, I think it is. Yeah, I think they could be looking, because like when you look at the way hurling's gone, that's kind of just how it is now. It's like there isn't really, like obviously when Davy came in, there was an element of sweepers, and then you've seen Waterford do something similar through their time with Eric McGrath. But it seems now like it's gone just full throttle with a lot of sides. Like you look at Cork Tipperary, like there wasn't too much tactics there at all. It was just end to end, a bit like a boxing match.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love seeing that the game has gone like that. It's just complete box office entertainment, and that's why we're frustrated that it's not being marketed to the level that it should be. But not going back into that debate. We're going to move on to the last game, which, speaking of huge score lines, Galway racking up a huge one here, 6-33 against 17 points from Westmeath. Look, just not a lot really to say about this game. Westmeath were, lambs to the slaughter really in this game, and it turned out to be exactly how we knew it was going to be. Galway running away with this one.
Yeah, like, and it's hard to really know. Like, I think we have this conversation nearly every week, but it's hard to know what you do in this scenario. Like, it's not good for Westmeath to just be continuously going down and coming back up. I know they avoided relegation last year, but like they've been in 2-3 Joe McDonagh Cup finals already. They've come up and down a few times already. It just can't do anyone any favors. But I suppose you have to have a side that gets relegated, obviously. And unfortunately for Westmeath, it's going to be them this year. But yeah, like, I mean, like we can't really read too much into it. Like, I suppose a good confidence booster maybe for Galway. Like, obviously Conor Whelan scoring a hat trick, Brian Concannon with 1-3, a whole host of different scores as well. I think a few younger players and new lads came into the team as well. So yeah, like you can't really, like, at the end of the year when Galway go on to achieve what they achieve, if they do achieve anything, and when Westmeath get relegated, like we won't look at this as a hugely defining result in either one season.
Yeah, I feel like there's not a lot really we can take from this, even though Galway racked up a huge tally. It's kind of one that pretty much everyone and their dog expected that Galway were going to win that game against Westmeath, and they did. But yeah, we're going to move now from hurling to Gaelic football, starting with the provincial final down in Munster. Kerry 5-14, Clare 15 points. Now, obviously, the first thing that I want to say, and obviously I know that you agree with this, is just want to pass on our deepest condolences to the Clifford family, the tragic passing of their mother, Ellen, and just huge credit to David and Paddy. They both were absolute, superstars there for Kerry on the weekend, handled themselves superbly. David with 2-6, man of the match. But, a terribly tough time for the two lads and for the family entirely. And yeah, I just want to pass on my deepest condolences. Rest in peace, Ellen.
Yeah, same here. Like, yeah, I said it yesterday, obviously on my own show. Like, and yeah, completely agree with what you said there. And obviously, yeah, the fact that David Clifford and Paddy Clifford played, like, was incredible, really. Like, because when you heard the news come through on Saturday night, you were thinking David and Paddy wouldn't play, and obviously that's completely normal given the circumstances. But the fact they did play, like, I think we talk a lot about the technical ability of both players, and I think it was on show again, like 3-6 between the both of them. I think is an incredible feat. But the strength and the sort of character of both of them to actually go out and play, for their teammates, for their county, because at the end of the day they wanted to go out and win and get the best results possible for their team. And I think given the circumstances, given that what happened, yeah, like just incredible, really, because I think we've all been there before where we've maybe lost people close to us, and I think the first thing that happens is you obviously grieve and you take time off and you rest, you recuperate. But they went and played for their county, and I think it shows a tremendous amount of character for both players, and yeah, both probably gave their best performances of the season as well.
Yeah, and there was a beautiful moment where Paddy put David through for David's second goal and Kerry's third goal, and just the chemistry between the two of them was, on another level. And yeah, just a really difficult time for them. And I have to say they handled themselves brilliantly, like, because David in particular, like right at the end there, when the crowd are coming onto the pitch, like, he knows that all those are going to be, he knows that they're all going to be coming over and, trying to get photos with him and stuff. And for him to keep his head there and to not try and, run down the tunnel and everything to get away from it, like, to go up and accept the trophy, like, I have to say, handle himself like an absolute gentleman. So massive respect to him and massive respect to Paddy as well. Both of them handled themselves superbly. But this game was, moving into the game itself, this game was just a really one-sided affair. It was a really tough day out for Clare. Like, you think like Owen Cleary, Keelan Sexton, Kieran Russell, like, they never stopped, giving their all, but they were just outmatched in this game.
Yeah, like, I mean, Kerry brought their A game from start to finish. Like, they brought everything in abundance. Like, and I think this is the best version of Kerry that we've seen so far this year. I mean, like, the fact that you score 3 goals in the opening half, the way they played at times was fantastic. Like, I mean, David Clifford, Tony Brosnan as well, like, what footballer he looks like. I think he's really coming into his prime now, and he's looking like he's really sort of staking his claim to stay in this Kerry side. We talked before about fringe players and everything else and trying to step up into the team. I think Tony Brosnan is one that looks like he's really taken his chance, to be fair. And yeah, like, the disappointment with Clare, like, it was hard to know what sort of game plan they had. You would look at it and think, usually when you see Division 2 side against the Division 1 side, you'll see the Division 2 team, a lot of men behind the ball, try and make it tough, try and frustrate the opposition, try and hit them on the counter-attack. And that wasn't the case. It looked like Clare, it didn't really know. It was kind of hard to know what way they were trying to play. Like, they were cut open far too much. Kerry could have scored probably 6 or 7 goals. Attacking wise, at times they didn't know if they looked confused between whether they should keep the ball or shoot or try go for goals. They just looked caught in 2, 3, 4 different minds at the best of times. And yeah, it was very comfortable for Kerry. And yeah, disappointment for Clare. Like, I don't think there's any shame in losing to Kerry in a Munster final, but I think we all expected Clare to be a little bit better on the day, and that wasn't the case.
Yeah, like, being honest, I genuinely thought that going into this game, I genuinely believed that with 20 minutes to go, Clare would be still right in there with Kerry, because I'd seen Clare come to Croke Park and they should have beaten Dublin. Like, they really should have beaten Dublin that day. And I was thinking, look, it's a provincial final where they have a free shot at Kerry. Surely they're going to give it their all. And just some of the marking as well, when the game went against them, some of the marking was absolutely terrible. They looked way off the pace. And yeah, look, I don't know how they go from here. Like they've got the game against Donegal coming up next, which is obviously, you know, D1 that they're going to need to win to have a chance of getting out of the group stages. Like that's a fascinating game because it's two teams that morally are not in a good place. Donegal and Clare both not in a good spot in terms of, you know, Donegal had a terrible Ulster Championship and a terrible league, and Clare obviously getting a bad beating there. But yeah, I mean, for Kerry, you know, another Munster title, and yeah, they move on. But before we move on from Munster football, like related to Munster football as well, another bit of sad news that we have to touch on as well, as pointed out by a comment here about, of course, David Power. His mother, Miriam, passed away there, and just another, you know, terribly sad bit of news. So again, from myself and from yourself, obviously, just again, our deepest condolences to David Power and anyone affected by that passing, of course, of Miriam. And yeah, it's just moments like this is where you put not only the GAA but sport into perspective, and it really shows, you know, what does really matter in life.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Like I think there's far more important things than Gaelic football and hurling than sport. At the end of the day, I think sport is great for bringing people together, and communities come together and counties come together in these moments. But yeah, like definitely far more bigger things. And as you said there, like yeah, wasn't aware of that news at all until now. To be honest with you, so yeah, very, very disappointed and sad to hear that. And yeah, like I think at the end of the day, you know, there's far more bigger things than sport at the end of the day.
Yeah, no doubt. And congratulations to Kerry, of course, Munster football champions for 2023. Another team that retained their provincial title was Galway. They beat Sligo by 220 to 12 points. And really, in terms of, you know, the performance and what stood out to me, now, we knew he was a good footballer. We knew he was a damn good player. But Matthew Tierney, 2 goals and 7 points. I mean, what a performance from this fella. Like, I think his ceiling now, having seen this performance, his ceiling is higher than I originally thought. I thought he was a very, very good player. But having seen performances like the ones he's been putting in this season, like he's been a real leader, I think his ceiling now is, I think he could be an elite player for Galway.
Absolutely, yeah. Like I think you could argue he's footballer of the year so far. I mean, he scored 3 goals and 14 points in the league. I think he didn't play too much towards the end of the league, just with I think he picked up a bit of a niggle, but yeah, like 2-9 so far in the championship, 2-7 yesterday. Like, I mean, outstanding performance from Matthew Tierney. And it's not just his, like, I think another thing we're pointing out is that he doesn't take the frees as well. So he's doing most of his scoring from play. Like he scores the odd mark maybe here and there, the odd free, but he's not the first man on place balls that would usually be maybe Shane Walsh or Finnerty or something of that sort of nature, Paul Conroy maybe usually. But like, yeah, it's been absolutely extraordinary sort of. And like, he's only 22, I think, 22, 23. Like I remember seeing him against Dublin in the under-20 All-Ireland final there, 2020. And yeah, like he's just come on leaps and bounds. Like he looks like an extraordinary footballer. And like, I think like when you look at how well Galway have integrated a lot of these under-20 footballers, like I think it's something that Pádraig Joyce needs to get massive credit for. Like you've got Jack Lynn, Sean Kelly, Tom O'Callaghan featuring, Cathal Sweeney, Dylan McHugh, like all lads who were part of that team, that under-20 team. Not too sure if Cathal Sweeney was actually, but the rest of them were. And I think it's incredible, really, like the fact that Pádraig Joyce is getting them all into the team, getting them integrated. And it goes to show, like, because you look at, Kildare, who've got the back-to-back under-20 All-Ireland finals, Sligo now in an under-20 All-Ireland final, Offaly did it a couple of years ago. It shows what can happen when you get players into the team and give them a chance, because at the end of the day, Galway are the one county where maybe they didn't necessarily need to put these players in, but they have, and look what's happened. Like, they have a wealth of options now and are probably the front runners for an All-Ireland now, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think they look damn good. Like, when you look at like Shane Walsh, obviously, very much carried the fight to Kerry last year in the All-Ireland final, but if Tierney keeps up this form, he's a threat to any defence in the country. And look, for Sligo themselves, again, similarly to Clare, they were just completely outmatched in this game. And for them now going forward into the group stage of the All-Ireland, like, it's going to be tough for them. I like, that's just my honest thing. Like, look, they've been in fantastic form. We'll get on, we'll touch on, you know, the fantastic results at the under-20s semi-finals that they had. But I feel like, look, the next few weeks will be tough. They're going to be, you know, they're jumping into the water there with a lot of sharks.
Yeah, like, it's going to be tough for them, all right. The one game you would look at is they play Kildare, I think, first up in Markovich Park. That'd be a big game, a big game for them, because like the way Kildare have been at times this year, you could look at it and think Sligo, you know, could possibly do something there. Although I think at the same time, when you look at how Kildare performed against Dublin, I think, you know, they should, although they didn't win the game, they should carry a bit of momentum and they should be beating Sligo. Let's be honest, with the players that they have available to them. But no, like, yeah, it'd be tough for Sligo. Like, going to Dublin, playing them in Croke Park, you know, it's fortunately it's just going to be another game like the Galway one against Roscommon. You know, it's probably, you know, I think they would have wanted to avoid everyone from Connacht, because Roscommon would have played Sligo more than anyone, and they'll know the knack of beating them, and there won't be any big upsets there. So yeah, they'll target the Kildare game, I think, is the main one. But if they get nothing from that, then yeah, you know, the last two matches against Dublin and Roscommon, like, it's just, it would be very tough for them to sort of end the season on any sort of positive note.
Yeah, no, for sure. But yeah, congratulations to Galway, Connacht football champions for 2023. Now we're going to move to this segment, which we're going to touch on both of the under-20 football semi-finals, which took place over the weekend. So we had Sligo 1-8, Kerry 9 points, and the other one was down 2-7, Kildare 1-11. Particularly the down Kildare game was an absolutely thrilling affair, with, of course, Jack McKevitt hitting the winner for Kildare right at the end. But just watching these two games now, of course, a bit of a historic final with Sligo and Kildare. Like, what did you make of both semi-finals? And now, what are you thinking of this final coming up?
Yeah, no, like, I thought it was about two very, very intriguing games. And I think for Sligo, like, I mean, you know, it's not often in any code really where you see a Sligo team beat Kerry. So the fact that they were able to go and do it, I think, was brilliant. I think, you know, I had them as favourites to win, to be fair. But yeah, like, it's been an incredible story for Sligo. Like, you know, there's not many teams, and you know, in football at any grade that can be Galway, Roscommon, Mayo, and Kerry in the same season. Like, it's kind of extraordinary stuff. And, you know, Ronan Ireland obviously scoring 1-1, looks like a top player, and Luke Marin as well. Like, I think Sligo football, like, they're definitely building something. They're definitely building something. You know, like, maybe when you win one under-20 provincial title, you can say, you could argue the case that it's a fluke, although I don't necessarily agree with that. But they've gone and won both. You know, they've won back-to-back under-20 Connacht titles. They're now in a final as well, beating Kerry at under-20 level. Like, a few of those Kerry lads playing today will probably go on to play in the senior team, possibly in the next 3 or 4 years. So you're looking at it and thinking Sligo are definitely building something. And, you know, you look at the growth at schools level as well. Like, they've been achieving a lot at schools level. A lot of their players involved in the Sigerson Cup. Like, Sligo are, you know, I'd give it 4 or 5 years, and I think you will see Sligo, in my opinion, compete for Connacht titles. You know, compete with the problem is Roscommon, Mayo, and Galway look so good at the moment. But if there is a regression from some of those counties in the next couple of years, Sligo have more than a chance at doing something, and definitely rising up through the divisions, possibly getting into Division 1 at some point.
Yeah, I feel like the next step for Sligo is to, you know, either say if something happens with Tony McEntee potentially going to the Armagh job, if Kieran McGeeney does leave over the next couple of years, they need to be very careful with who they would then replace Tony McEntee with, because a golden generation can be squandered if it goes into the wrong hands. So there needs to be the right manager there to bring these players into the senior setup and build a team around them. Like, I would liken this a lot to what Cork hurling was right at the end of the 90s. They got Jimmy Barry Murphy in. They brought in the likes of Joe Dean, Ben O'Connor, Donald O'Cusack, all these young lads into the side, built a team around them, won an All-Ireland title. Now, do I think Sligo will win the All-Ireland? No, I still think, like, it wouldn't be the first year anyway. Like, look, do I think they could become a contender? If they keep this going, yeah. Like, you look at what's happening with Roscommon, like, you look at what's happening with Louth when they got Mickey Hart in. they didn't even have all these lads coming through, but with Mickey Hart at the helm, they still made outrageous progress in such a few years. Like, you look at how Donegal managed to turn the corner under Jim McGuinness. Like, it has been done. You look at Rory Gallagher with Derry, how good they've got. They need to get the right manager in there, and then they can carry on and go to serious levels. But yeah, on the other side as well, Kildare, again, just more and more talent coming through the ranks for Kildare, and I can't wait to see what they're going to do with it. Hopefully, Glenn Ryan can, translate this into a really good senior side. But yeah, decision time. If you had to pick Sligo or Kildare to go and win it, can Sligo go and complete the ultimate fairy tale, winning an under-20 All-Ireland title? Because, like, one thing that I have loved, and I have to say, I love the confidence of the Sligo team. I love that little post-match speech where he said, "Yeah, we are a big dog now." Like, that type. I love that confidence. Can they go now and beat Kildare in this final?
Yeah, I think they'll be on the basis of who they've beaten. Like, you look at, I don't know a lot about Galway, Mayo, and Roscommon at under 20 level, but what I do know is they're counties that have all been producing, the last couple of years. Mayo, maybe not so much in terms of the competition, but they're still bringing in a lot of players into their senior team. And a lot of those players have been, some of the best in the country in the last couple of years. So I would give Sligo the edge. Like, Kildare obviously played an under 20 final last year. And this is their third under-20 final now in 5 years. So, like, it's interesting. Like, we're talking about Sligo having the potential to go on and do great things. I think Kildare have to be in that bracket as well, if not even further, because you look at it and think they already have a team of players that are at a young enough age. And then you add back-to-back under-20 All-Ireland finals. If they can integrate those players over the next couple of seasons, Kildare could be onto something as well. So I think all in all, it's good to see from a GAA perspective, because we want to see new teams. We want to see teams be competitive. We want to see, the Division 1 standard get better, the Division 2 standards get better. And hopefully we'll see that with Kildare and Sligo over the next couple of months. But if I had to pick someone, I'd edge it towards Sligo, but it's a hard one to call, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'll narrowly go with Sligo as well. I would personally look Kildare won an under-20 All-Ireland in 2018. Obviously, the team with Jimmy Hyland at the helm. And obviously, a certain Davy Burke was the manager of that Kildare side. But yeah, I would love to see Sligo go and win one. Like, personally, speaking with my heart, I'd love to see them go and complete the ultimate fairy tale and go and win the All-Ireland title. But yeah, moving across then to the LGFA matches, which happened over the weekend. We're going to run through these. These were all provincial games, so not quite the full All-Ireland Championship, but obviously, their championship has kicked off, but we're still at the provincial stage. But we have our first provincial champions, Mayo 3-13, Galway 2-9. And look, for Mayo to rack up 3-13 against a Galway side who I was hugely impressed with their defence, I think that speaks really, really, really highly of this Mayo attack. Racking up 3-13 against a defence like that, hugely, hugely impressive.
Yeah, and I think I seen Mayo scored 1-3 without reply in the opening 10-15 minutes. And yeah, it's hard. I backed Galway to win this game. And I'm not too sure what's happened to Galway, to be honest. I wonder, is it a case of they put too much into the league and now it's kind of come back to bite them a little bit? Because throughout the league, defensively, as you said, they were the best team in the country. They were keeping teams out, grinding out wins, beat Mayo earlier in the year by a point. But they conceded 5 goals against Kerry, and in the league final. And now they've conceded 3 versus Mayo. And yeah, Mayo just blew them away. I think Galway did well to be a point up at half time, but turning around to be a point up at half time. But Galway were too strong, or Mayo were too strong. 3 goals, 13 points to 2-9, as you said. It's a commanding enough victory, and one that definitely surprised me, because Mayo have looked very sort of inconsistent the last couple of years. They've been lacking big results. Their first Connacht title since 2016 as well, which shows you just how much of a stranglehold Galway had over Mayo the last couple of years. So big result for Mayo, and you'd wonder now, could they kick on and possibly challenge for the All-Ireland?
Yeah, well, I have to say, I did kind of back them as dark horses for it last year. And look, when Kerry blew them away in that semi-final the way that they did, I was surprised at how comfortable it was for Kerry on the day. But you're right, their forward line in this game was fantastic. Rachel Cairns at 1-2, Sinead Walsh with 1-1, Deirdre Doherty with 3 points, Tamara O'Connor with the other goal. just hugely impressive that they managed to break down that Galway defence. And yeah, like I put both of these sides in contention for the All-Ireland, but if they were to meet down the line, the fact that Mayo have now beaten Galway, I think is hugely important psychologically going forward, that they've broken, as you said, that stranglehold that Galway would have had over them. And now when you look at it, like the All-Ireland is wide open. Mayo will back themselves that they can possibly use this as a springboard to go and potentially win the All-Ireland now.
Absolutely, yeah, because as you said, like Mayo have not been on the fringes, to be fair, for a good couple of years. I remember them getting to a couple of finals with Dublin. And as you said, they're one of those sides that when they're on it, they have the possibility to rack up big wins and big scores. But at the same time, they're probably a team that can ship a couple of goals and possibly things can go the other way as well. But as you said, like with the likes of Sinead Walsh, Rachel Kearns, like they've got a brilliant attack, and I think they're more than capable. Like Galway for me were a serious contender going into the All-Ireland this year, and Mayo have blew them away really, like a quite comfortable result in the end. And they'll obviously go into the group stages now, and as one of the seeded sides, so they could avoid a Kerry or Cork depending on who wins the replay. So no, I think things are looking good for Mayo.
Yeah, without doubt. We're going to move down south. Just before we move on, obviously, huge congratulations to Mayo, Connacht champions for 2023. We're going to move down south then. I'm starting with the game that I absolutely was fascinated to see, because obviously Kerry, they've been on the rise, they've been on the come up. You've got Sheaf Roche there, you've got Louise Moore-Hertig there, you've got Niamh Carmody there, you've got so much talent. But the one question is always, they have yet to beat Cork in a really, really big game. And it looked like they were about to do it, but Cork managed to pull them back and draw. Cork 2-14, Kerry 2-14. Kerry looked like they were pretty much home and hosed. Cork brought them back. Orla Cahalan and Emer Kiley got goals, and then Katie Quirk hitting a last-minute equaliser. So personally looking at this, I feel like this is a really frustrating result for Kerry, because it's like, it reminds me a lot, and it's funny that, it's Kerry this side, but it reminds me a lot of when Monaghan played Kerry in the men's Super 8s a few years ago, and Monaghan hadn't beaten Kerry in so long. And then David Clifford struck for the last minute goal to snatch a draw. And look, even though Monaghan hadn't lost, it was one of those where it was so frustrating. You should have won that one. And I feel like Kerry should have won this one.
Definitely, yeah. Like, because it was 2 late goals, I think, wasn't it, from Orla Cahalan and Emer Kiley, like, from looking at a few different match reports and everything else. Like, and you look at Kerry, like they've been on, you feel like they're on the brink of an All-Ireland success. Given the fact that they won the league, they got to an All-Ireland final last year. Like, you feel like they are building towards something, and you could argue Meath maybe aren't the same team this year with a couple of players not there, and obviously new manager coming in. Dublin have been going for a while, but do they have it in them to push once again? So there's Kerry are a fresh team on the block. They're a very young side, young players, hungry for success, and this would have been a huge step, because I think the winner of this, I think we would fancy to win the Munster final. And yeah, like it was a cracking game, and I think psychologically now for Kerry, like it'd be tough for them to go again, because how many times, I know we don't see many replays in men's football. We don't see any anymore in men's football or hurling. But, if you go back, 5-6 years ago, how many times down the years did you see games that would go to a replay, and you would see, the replay obviously get played, and it would go completely the other way. And I think, in some ways it will nearly feel like a win for Cork, because they were beaten and they've come back from the dead, and they'll be the side going into the replay more confident than Kerry. And for this Kerry young team, like that's the thing. They just need to, they need to get big wins on their board in the championship. But at the same time, they have more than the talent to do so. Like seeing Louise Namerta scored 1-7, so another outstanding performance from her once again.
Oh no, like she's absolutely ridiculous. Like 1-7, but like she's been consistently doing it for years. And in my opinion, it's her. You could say maybe Vicky Wall, Emma Duggan, and Amy Mackin, like Ashla Maloney, as well. They're the top 5 in the country. Like Louise is just unbelievable. Who wins now? Obviously, it's hard to tell. I probably would lean towards Kerry. I'm like, look, you messed it up this time. Don't mess it up the next time. This is their best chance to beat Cork in such a long time. I feel like they won't mess it up the second time. I feel like they finished the job in the replay, which then would lead them in to play against Waterford, who beat Tipperary by 1-9 to a goal and 7. So Waterford, of course, into the Munster final. And I have to say, against the Tipperary side that obviously possesses the likes of Ashla Maloney, for Waterford to get the victory, hugely impressive.
Absolutely, yeah. Like, and I suppose Waterford have been a team that have been on the rise for a couple of years, like finished 5th in Division 1. And it is brilliant to see, like, it at ladies football level, how well Waterford are doing. And yeah, big result, like to get to a Munster final. Like, you'd imagine they'll go in as underdogs against either Kerry or Cork, but at the same time, look, that will suit them. And when they played both Kerry and Cork in the league, they were competitive. They did pull it up to them for a large part. So yeah, big result for Waterford.
Yeah, without doubt. And I agree with you. I think, look, Kerry or Cork coming out of that game would be too much for Waterford, but it's definitely huge progress made again. So we're going to move over east then. Dublin, of course, had already beaten Meath in the Leinster Championship. In my opinion, that was their biggest test, and they more than proved that with how they absolutely dispatched Laois 3-14 to 3 points. This is a good Laois team as well, like a Laois side that really put it up to Armagh in the Intermediate League final, has forwards the likes of Mo and Ernie, Rowan Fitzpatrick, but Dublin ruthless in this game.
Absolutely, yeah. Like it was comprehensive from start to finish, and obviously playing a team like Laois, who were intermediate All-Ireland champions last year, like you wouldn't know. Like, I mean, it's you at the end of the day, from a Dublin point of view, you can only beat what's in front of you. And as you said, like Mo and Ernie on our day, has the potential to, I suppose, make a fool out of any defence. And thankfully enough, we brushed Laois aside. We were the better team from the first minute to last. Didn't see any of the game, but from what I heard, and huge result. And onwards and upwards for the Dublin ladies. And I think I made a prediction in my own video for Dublin to win the All Ireland, and so far so good.
Yeah, I feel like maybe a bit of a hot take, but I feel like if Dublin want an All-Ireland champions team this year, I think it's most likely this team. I feel like I'm liking the way that Mick Bowen again is blending the experience of the likes of Hannah Tyrrell, Carla Rowe, but blending that really well with new stars like Kate Sullivan, Caoimhe O'Connor. I feel like it's blending together really, really nicely. And a victory like that was just as efficient as Dublin were in, their dynasty years a few years ago. So I feel like that result hugely promising for Dublin going forward this year, because that's a game that Dublin probably should win, but to win it like that, hugely impressive. Going up north then, Armagh, I picked out at the start of the year. I said Armagh, I thought, were the best team in Ulster. They have backed that up by beating Donegal by 1-15 to 2 goals and 4 points. Again, Amy Mackin right at the helm for Armagh in this game. And look, for a Donegal side, Donegal had an absolutely unbelievably bad league. Like they were so off the pace. There was a few games where they went ridiculous amounts of time in the game without scoring. They kind of pulled it back. They did beat Cavan, but as Matthew Hurley pointed out on this podcast here, like he pointed out, it was a Cavan side fresh off the strike. Like it was a Cavan side that probably had their mind elsewhere, and Donegal beat them that day. It didn't look hugely impressive doing so. And look, we just both predicted that Armagh would be too much for them. And Armagh, again, racking up, a big enough scoreline there and looking hugely impressive again.
Absolutely, yeah. Like, and Armagh have been, that type of team that we probably looked at in the same breath, maybe as a Meath, as a Kerry, sort of an up-and-coming team, a team that could go on and do something. And I mean, we saw how impressive they were, obviously, in the Division 2 league final that day. And some of their players on their day have the capabilities of producing top-class football. So, yeah, it was probably not much of a surprise, really. Like, as you said, Donegal, from looking at it there, have struggled throughout the league, and does seem to be a bit of a decline there. Few players obviously knocked around for quite a while now. And fair play to Armagh. Look, they went out, they got the job done, and you'd fancy them to beat Cavan as well, and I suppose put themselves through to the next round.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think there's no way that Armagh don't beat Cavan. Like, the forward power that they possess is too much. Amy Mackin on her own, I think, is too much for most defenses. And then you throw in the likes of Blaughin Mackin, Kelly Mallon, Aoife McCoy. I think it's too much. I feel like they should be too strong. McConville as well, actually, sorry, at centre-back continues to impress me time and time again. We're going to move then across to Camogie, and we're going to touch on Tipperary's hugely impressive victory over Waterford. And the reason I've highlighted this one straight away is because these two teams, like, let's not make any mistakes here. Camogie has an elite three. Like, it has an elite three. Galway, Cork, Kilkenny have dominated Camogie now for the last few years. And if any team is going to break into that three, it was going to come from this game, Tipperary or Waterford. And for Tipperary to win it, and to win it so emphatically, like you look at Koch Devan, 2-5, Emer McGrath, 4 points, goals for Oisin Howard and Heffernan. Like, just hugely impressive from Tipperary. And for Waterford, look, to only put up 1-9 when they have the likes of Beth Carton and Niamh Rockett, like, is it potentially worrying that maybe they're not as close to the top three as they thought they were, or have Tipperary just improved that much?
Yeah, I think Tipperary have improved, leaps and bounds. Like, obviously in the league as well, they're very, very strong. Probably a little bit unlucky not to progress into a league final, like finishing in third in total. So, like, no, I think Tipperary, like, they definitely are closing the gap, and I think it's great to see because, as you said there, like, it has been, between Cork, Galway, Kilkenny, and the All-Ireland Camogie Championship for probably the last 10 years or so. So I think we need more teams to be making the step up, and as you said, Tipperary, getting a tally of 4-11, winning the game quite comfortably, playing the way that they did. I think there's a lot to be positive for if you're a Tipperary supporter, and yeah, I think they're more than capable of challenging the big teams this year.
Agreed. And Clare next in the Munster final, like, having seen how in some games Clare were very reliant on McNamara and things like that, like, I would be tipping them to go and win this game as well.
I think so, yeah. Like, I think if you rack up a score of 4-11 and play the way that they did, and like throughout the league, like they were outstanding. Obviously, they were pipped in the end by Galway and Cork, but like they have impressed over the last few seasons. They have grown, and they've shown more togetherness as a group, and I'd fancy them to get the job done. And I think they're definitely a dark horse anyway for an All-Ireland possibly this year.
Yeah, without doubt. And it would be fascinating to see, can they crack that elite three of Galway, Cork and Kilkenny, because by God, that three have had a stranglehold over Camogie for since God knows. So I mean, it'd be interesting to see if somebody can break into it. And if I was to pick somebody to break into it, I would pick Tipperary. But that has been the whole weekend recap, guys, here on Play on GAA. Thank you so much for giving us your time today. My thanks to Aaron for coming on once again. And until the next one, guys,